Check.
There you go.
Check.
I think that's a great way to start. So today we're going to talk about the importance of mental health and friendships. Me and Hunter have been friends
Way too long.
for about as long as his mom has been paying me, which is going on 6 months now, and I need a raise.
Yeah, she wasn't paid enough.
No, me and Hunter have been friends for forever. I guess is the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, long time. 20. When that movie? 12? 13?
I don't know.
It's like 9 years.
I have no idea.
9 years.
My life is just.
All right.
Ever since you
Sorry.
came into it. No. So we just wanted to, as being two very long friends, talk about the importance of mental health in that space and some of the challenges that we deal with, that we see in having that narrative and having that conversation and some of the hurdles. So just to start right off with it, I think one of the biggest things is knowing when to check in. I think is the biggest thing that I deal with between you and one of our other buddies that works here, Ezra. Especially sometimes with men where you're like, I know that they're going through something right now, or I know that they seem like not themselves, and I don't want to cause more issues. Like, I don't want to cause more problems. And maybe asking, like, hey, man, you doing all right? Is going to be like, yeah, I'm fine. Or, like, there's a jaded
Like
answer there.
Knee-jerk.
Yeah.
Knee-jerk reaction, yeah.
Yeah, there's like a jaded knee-jerk reaction, and you just don't want to escalate because you don't want to cause your buddy more problems. You're like, dude's already going through something. I don't want to stress him out further. That now, like, people are seeing that it's a problem, and then now he's going to be like, oh, God, now it's not enough that I'm seeing it. Yeah. Now other people are seeing it. Now I got to gauge this. And
I think, especially because we just talked about, how long we've been friends, and said 9 years. I was actually thinking about it. I was like, even when we were younger, I don't think we ever had this conversation. I think we talked about life a lot when we were younger. I think we talked about generally, what our goals were, where we were headed. But I don't think we ever had the conversation of like, hey man, like, how's your mental health? Like, honestly, I don't think we did until like more recently when we actually grew up. Yeah. So I think that plays into it too. It's like we had 5 years of not doing that, not checking in like with that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we should probably be checking in with each other. Mental health is real. It's something, and like he's struggling with stuff too. So it's like I think it's also being able to learn, like, even if you are friends for a long time, you are really close, it is learning when to break that barrier and be like, all right, man, let's actually sit down, like, really have a conversation about this, because we may have just been, just like joking buddies the entire time and never actually got down on a real level. And I think it came with maturity that we got to that point. But even now, like you said, it's hard to know when to actually step in and actually ask the question or start the conversation.
Yeah, I think that's helped a lot as we, like, one, working here and, like, knowing now we've become more and more educated on the mental health side of things, coming in pretty naive to all of it. But even on top of that, I think that in the beginning, I think a little bit of too is the immaturity, like, as a young boy growing up in that age of like high school to that middle school, high school age, as you're continuing to grow, there's an element of, we need to be real tough men, and it's stupid. I'm not gonna ask about how he's feeling. It's dumb. And I think it's a lot of growing and immaturity to realize that, like, I don't know why it happens that way. When you're younger, you're like, feelings are stupid, talking about this stuff's stupid. And then as you get older, you realize, like, as you become a man, that, like, no, like, we need to talk about this stuff. You need to have that support system there. I think that's just the volume of life's problems that continues to grow. Yeah. Because you look back on it and you're, like, in high school and you're like, man, I got a test coming up on
Waffle
Friday.
House is my biggest responsibility. That's literally it. Like, and then now you add all this on top of it, and you have to have those conversations, man. And I think it's also like being able to know the person that you're talking to too. Because
Yeah.
I think me and you are very aware now that we have very different like viewpoints on like those kind of things, like different I guess ways of talking about that or bringing it up or stuff like that. And it's also just understanding your audience, really, like exactly how you should make it come across, how you should say it, if you should be really direct, if you should not be direct, if you even bring it up at all, like at the time. Like I think it's just also getting to know the other person on a deeper level beyond just, hey, we're friends, I know like his birthday, I know his mom's, I know his family, everything. That's deeper of like, okay, how's he gonna react under stress? How's he gonna react if I do confront him directly about something? How's he gonna respond? Is he gonna get mad at me? Is he gonna get mad at other people? Like how exactly is he gonna pan out?
Yeah, and I think that is the different dynamic with it, because I mean, at least in like family, or maybe in the part of like the gap that's missed, like when you go to a therapist, it's truthfully a stranger until you start talking to them, so there really isn't that the intimate knowledge of one another. And then when it's your family, it's like, I'm descendant of this person, like they're half me, so in some aspect I'm gonna get some things right, just throwing blanks against the wall,
Right.
But when it's a friend, you're like, this is a totally different personality type than me. So it's like, maybe I feel one way, we relate on some things, but the approach to talking to this person is totally different. They have their own complete mindset and their own way of dealing with things. I think that's what makes it challenging.
Right. Because it's almost easier talking to a stranger about their mental health, because like, you can approach them any way, which way, and you're not going to know any better. So like they're not going to take it any type of way. If you approach your friend in a way they don't like it and they've been your friend for a long time, they're going to be like, you bad person, you don't know.
Bad word.
You, shame on you. You don't know what my style is or whatever. So I think that dang it. It's going so good.
Yeah. I feel like that's a great point though. So what do you think from your perspective at least, one of the biggest hurdles is in that dynamic of trying to make sure that your friends are in a good headspace and trying to have that conversation when they're not?
I think that's the hard part, is because I don't think there ever will be a right answer. I think no matter what, when approaching a subject like this, there is going to be some sort of jadedness, because even if they are your friend for a long time, at first, just with where you're at mentally, it's probably going to come off as like they're being they're being mean about it, or they're judging you about it in some way. And it could just be them genuinely caring, but it's going to come off as jaded just for the simple fact of where you're at and where your headspace is at. So I think, and this is something we've kind of talked about before, but we almost need like a plan, or like a set plan of what we should do or how we bring it up. Like if it is just asking a simple question, and if they want to talk about it, they'll say it. If they don't want to talk about it, they'll just say they don't want to talk about it, and you move on. So I think it's, it is planning ahead. You plan ahead in everything else in your life, making plans and schedules works and everything else. So why not mental health? So if you do have a close friend group, make a plan with them. If it is a code word if you want, or if it is just like, if we ask, hey, are you okay? Like if you say, yeah, no, I'm good. And they're like, are you really okay? And like actually being real about the answer. Even if you're not okay, just be like, no, I'm not okay, but I don't want to talk about it. Like even if it's that. So at least they know and they're aware. And that way, whenever you do want to talk about it, they're aware, they're ready, and they're waiting for you.
Prepared for the situation.
Yeah.
And it reminded me about the point that I was trying to make earlier, was that I think that you're really right in that when you're going to with friends, because it is an interesting dynamic on how that works when you're trying to talk to friends about like the intimate conversation of mental health. And it is going to be difficult, but it's one of those things, just like everything else, that it needs to happen. It is important. Just because of the fact that it's difficult shouldn't be a reason not to do it. Most of the things, at least in my opinion, most of the things in life that need to be done are difficult. And the things that improve it or make things better are difficult, and sometimes not fun, but they need to be done in order for that improvement to be made. And afterwards, after the fact, 9 times out of 10, you're like, I'm so glad I did that.
Right.
I'm so glad that we talked about that. I'm so glad that we had that conversation. I was really nervous or worried about that, but it after the fact, you're like, it was a really, it was a really good thing that I did do that.
Right. It's facing the snakes in the grass. Jordan Peterson always says that. It's like, don't let the snakes bite you that are in the grass. Like, so you have to face the snakes that are not showing. So like, And that's the most important. Those are the most ones. You don't know what's going to hit you. You're all of a sudden going to walk up. It's going to blow up one day. Your friend's going to explode one day and yell at you and say, "Oh, you're this, and this," because they're having bad mental health. You never talk to them. You never tried talking to them.
Yeah.
So it's going to hit you when you're least expecting it. So you got to keep the grass low so you can see it coming. You know what I mean? I think it's extremely important to have those conversations way before they're ever needed. And that's the hardest part, is bringing it up when it's not needed, because you're not really thinking about it.
Yeah.
If you're in a happy headspace and everyone, your whole friend group is too, and you're having a great time, you're not really thinking about what's going to happen if someone is having a bad time for a while. You just don't think about it.
Yeah. And I think it's too, it might be a balance of the both. I mean, of like, because it's like a friendship or anything else is truly like a relationship between two people, just like everything else is in life. Your relationship with your parents. I can't believe it.
Do it again.
Anyway, but like a relationship, I'm not gonna look at you. a relationship, it's like your parents or anybody else. That it's 50-50, there's give and take. Maybe not 50-50, but I mean, there's give and take at the very least. And it should be on both sides, where it's like, all right, I know that I'm not great right now, or I know that I'm struggling with things mentally. I should probably talk to some of my buddies, but that's what they're there for. Why are you
losing it, man? I was trying so hard.
I saw it out of the corner.
I can't wait till you look at the video. I was trying so hard.
I saw you out of the corner of my eye. That's why I wasn't trying to look at you. You're falling apart over there. But no, that's why you're like, thank you for thinking that's so funny. No, I'm just kidding. But like when you're getting to a point where you're like, I know that maybe I'm not doing the best. I need to talk to somebody about it. That's what my buddies are there for. I need to relinquish some of my ego and trying to like hold this thing together and talk to somebody about it.
I wasn't even bad that time.
Just
I was listening intently.
But it needs to be the opposite too. I mean, sometimes everybody's not going to be perfect. Everybody's going to make mistakes in that aspect. Sometimes I know I'm guilty of it too, where I'm like, nah, I got this. I'm going to hold this thing together.
Right.
And when you see that happening in your friend, it is sometimes you have to be like, hey man, hey, you doing okay? You doing all right? I see that you're struggling with some stuff. I don't want to overstep and try to solve anything for you. I just want to, if you need to talk about anything, I'm here. Just let me know. Yeah,
and I think we've talked about this before, and I think that's a great point, because I'm guilty of it too. Like I'll be the first to like, nah, I got this. Like I'm fine. And I think you talked about this before, and you kind of saw it before I did. But in me, if I am struggling through something mentally, it's literally just us getting together with our close friend group and going out and hanging out. Like that'll be enough for me to get through the next day. Like I'm not necessarily the person that has to talk about it unless it gets really bad, and then I'll say something. But just being able to kind of drop it all and just forget about it for a little bit and go out and like have fun with our friend group and like go do whatever. Like it could be literally anything. Going to the beach for the day, it could be going to grab dinner, whatever it is. Like just doing that simply will help me a lot than like just actually talking about it would when it's at the beginning stages of everything, because it helps me just kind of like reset. I think it's planning for that too. Like you have some friends where maybe they don't want to talk about it, and that's totally cool, but having that code word, or having that, like if he actually reaches out and is like, hey man, I really think we should need to hang out or something like that, just having a plan for it.
And I think that comes with time, with like within your friendship and whatnot, or trying to at least paying attention to the person that is your friend. I mean, you give you really care about them, and you pay attention. So you're like, well, I know that maybe same thing. Like the way that I get through most of my stuff is I talk about it. I know that that's my thing. When I can hear my own thought process aloud, it doesn't even have to be like really a conversation between me and anybody else where they're like solving my problems. But if I can just talk myself through what's going on aloud, that really helps me. But I know that's not everybody. I know that's not you. So in different aspects, but paying attention, being like, well, they they seem better, or this seems to fix things for a while, when they are bad, if we go do X, or if this thing happens. And like trying to pay attention to those things in the person that is your friend, I think goes a long way. Because just like that, we're like, all right, well, we need to go get some buddies together and go do an activity or something. We need to go outside. Excuse me. Because I know that so-and-so's struggling, and it's going to do them some good to get around some people that care about them.
Right.
I think that's really important as well. And sometimes it is communicating that. So maybe like, hey, man, like, I know that you're the talking thing. I don't really like the talking thing. This really helps me. Because that's not all it is. I mean, this whole thing, really what we're talking about is just like communication. Because
communication and using the resources around you. You know, not everyone else is going to be blessed to be working with a bunch of therapists that we could go to at any time. Be like, hey, I really need, tools for coping, or I need help going through this. Or can we talk real fast? Not everyone's going to have that, but you are going to have someone in your life that you really trust and that you really care about, and you know that they care about you. Yeah. So it's just approaching them, and even if it's not directly asking them to help your situation, just be like, hey man, what do you do when your mental health isn't the greatest? Like, what type of personality are you? Like, how do you solve it?
Yeah.
And maybe that'll give you more tools in your toolbox. It's just using the resources around you and have the communication skills to actually follow through with it and talk about it.
Yeah, I think that's too. I mean, I think that's a great piece of advice as well. Because, I mean, some people, it is a skill. Self-reflecting and self-assessment is a skill that is developed. I mean, it's not something that I think some people are just great at from the beginning. I mean, it varies from person to person. So, I mean, if people that truly care about you, really, really care about you, are suggesting that, like, hey, like, are you not noticing that, like, these things are going sideways and you're just don't seem like yourself? Maybe it is that you go get some help, go get some coaching on gauging that self-assessment, so that way you can start to do some of those things, so that way you can start having those conversations because the people around you. Because that is one of my biggest worries as a friend to my other friends too, is that, like, I don't want to be in a situation where I'm struggling and then I'm lashing out and causing more damage to people that care about me because of the fact that I'm going through something. So that's something that I try to keep in mind and stay conscious of whenever I'm going through stuff. And I think that's like one of the big struggles too, because that's like, that can be perceived as me pulling away from everybody, or me like, I don't know, like drawing back. And I think that makes that conversation even harder, because it's like, well, he's retreating and I'm trying to have this conversation. So I think that dynamic is like, it is a difficult like dance when you're close to people, with those closest to you, because of that fact, because there's like a mutual respect for each other on both sides. And
I think, this is like said in every single mental health piece of advice there is out there, but it's having an outlet too. Because not all the time, like, honestly, there's going to be times where you're going through something and your friend's going through something, and you might not be good for each other at that time to lean on each other, because they might not be as stable as you, and they're fighting just as hard as you are. So it's having an outlet to at least relieve the initial tension, or if you are, if it is depression, you can't get out of bed, just finding some sort of outlet to get you out of bed and to just do something, whatever it is. If that's the gym, if that's a creative outlet, if it's, if it is calling like, old friends or whatever it is, just find that outlet to at least relieve the initial pressure until you can get to a point where you can talk to someone, talk to your therapist, talk to your friend, whatever your long-term solution turns out to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice too. That outlet that piece of things is huge. Whatever your self-care thing is. I know that we talk about that here quite a bit at work, but whatever that self-care piece is, to get you to baseline, so that way you can start expressing those things clearly in a way that isn't like an emotional roller coaster up and down. To reach some sort of balance, so that way you can get the things that are bothering you out precisely. Because, I mean, if you can't communicate it, it's hard for anybody, a therapist, your friends, to help you with it. So finding whatever that thing is to really get you to baseline, whatever your little piece is to get you that little bit of hit of dopamine to get you back on track. In a healthy way, whatever that thing is.
Slippery slope.
Yeah, slippery slope. Whatever the healthy version of self-care is for you, a healthy outlet to get you there, I think is a great piece of advice.
So like getting a little more personal, when you don't have that avenue, or maybe you don't use that avenue of friends, therapists, outlet, whatever happens, like what do you notice in yourself? Like how far downhill do you get? Do you start lashing out at other people? Do you feel yourself like having more negative self-talk? Like,
personally for me, I totally withdraw from my personality. Like, I don't know what it is about that. If I'm like really stressed out, or if my mood is crap, if I'm really in a bad place, I will, like, my personality and my extrovertedness will withdraw. My like happiness, my overall like emotions, my humor, everything withdraws and goes inward, and kind of just like on autopilot, where you're just like showing up to things and checking boxes, and that's it. I mean, a part of that is being an adult, because you have to. Like, I
still show up responsibilities.
I got responsibilities. I got bills I got to get paid. I mean, I could be upset, but I need a roof over my head to be upset. To be upset in. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of those things is just I totally withdraw.
Do you know what that comes from? Like, has it just always been like that?
I think for me, it is. I think that when there is been negative moments in my life, I didn't really have the not support system, but support system that I was looking for. That I knew would help me. I think that either through lack of communication or lack of understanding or whatever it may be, that wasn't established. So in turn, I was like, I need to retreat, to think, to solve how I'm going to fix this. And I think through reinforcement growing up, that's what is now the knee-jerk reaction. I need to emotionally conserve energy so that way I can think about how I'm going to solve this problem. And until my brain, I mean, I'm problem solving. That's what I do here for this job. I mean, that's how really my brain works. So if I can't solve a problem, if I don't have a solution to a problem, that's all I fixate on. That's all where my energy goes. And it might be a thing where like I have established things to think myself out of that. Like, there are other reasons, like, no, you need to still not be extroverted, but you need still to emotionally make these investments in other people, because there is a purpose. But walking myself through it logically that what I'm doing is silly has helped me to do that less, because that there's a reason established behind it. But the problem solving thing where I'm like, I don't have a solution to this problem, I need to solve this problem because this problem is going to fix the other things that I need to do later on, or whatever, so on and so forth.
And does that work? And for how long?
I mean, it does and it doesn't. Like I said, I've established things now as I've grown up more and become more of an adult, I guess, where you start seeing some of the silliness in thinking along those lines. But it's definitely a battle. I mean, it's a battle that I have within myself all the time, because that's default. That's where you initially go, and then you have to put effort in to walk yourself back up out of that. And I've figured out now, like, I think a tough time in anybody's life, male, female, whoever it is that 20-ish year old range where you trying to hit that passion, that thing that is the self-care, where that slump of like, all right, what's the thing I grasp onto?
Building your toolbox.
Yeah, to get myself up out of this, to get myself out of this funk, is really, really tough, because at that age you really like, all right, what am I passionate about? What's that thing that gives me that spark, that gives me that, all right, this is the thing that I know that helps me, that
Right.
gets me up, gets me fired up, and recharges my batteries. I think you're just trying to figure that out in that time frame, and when you don't have that figured out yet and something happens, then you're like, now I'm just grasping at straws.
right.
I'm just trying to find anything to get me up out of this.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your default? What's your go-to when
I think mine's pretty similar to yours. I think I do the same thing where I withdraw, but it's more of like a compartmentalizing kind of thing. To where like I'm gonna withdraw to a certain extent, but I'm still gonna be my personality, because I feel like I have to be. Because I feel like, for the people around me, and so also so no one asks. Like I truly like try to fake it till I make it, until I have time to process it. And I do that by like just thinking by myself. Like I'm not very good at my communication skills, especially when I'm talking about my own feelings. And that's just simply because I normally work stuff out in my own head, and then I'll go and talk to someone and use them as a backboard, and just like try and like iron out the details. But up until that point, I'll just box it up away and put it in the bag, put it in the attic, and just wait until I can unpack it, and like wait till I can process it. I think it works for me to a certain extent, right? Because you can only buy so big of like a storage unit. You can only store so much stuff and stack it the right way so they all fit together and they all don't clash into each other. So it works up until that point, and then at that point, that's when like all the knots come untied, like everything, like everyone can see everything like all at once. And I think that's when it becomes unhealthy, because then it does look like I'm lashing out, or like I am in like a severe depressive state, and maybe just I'm just overwhelmed with whatever I'm facing in life. So I think moving forward, I think that because that works for me, I think it is just being able to empty that space more often, and finding my outlet of emptying that space without it getting too overpacked, and just finding that space to be able to slowly unpack it and deal with it and deal with it and deal with it, and using the tools around me, my friends, the people I work with, the great therapists we have here, like using all them if I need to.
And I think that's a great point too, and like highlighting between the both of us, I think that there isn't like I think when bad things happen, there isn't a right way to deal with it.
No way.
I think you deal with it in the way that you're comfortable dealing with it, but it's making sure that you're doing it in a healthy way. I mean, like, because whatever way that you best deal with it is going to be the thing that you're going to go to try to solve the problem, to try to process that stuff. Because you can't prevent bad things from happening. They're going to. But yeah, I don't think it's like, oh, your way is not good, this way is not good, this way is the best way. I don't think there, in my opinion at least, I don't think there is that. I think that there's just like, any way can be unhealthy if you let it become unhealthy. Any way, if you don't go about it the right way, or you don't let it get to a point, can become unhealthy. You need to make sure that the way that you're going about it, where those pitfalls are, where, okay, I'm starting to do that thing and I know it's not the best thing. I need outsource help. With your way of processing and going through boxing things, be like, all right, well, I'll deal with this and I'll think through this problem, and I'll use somebody else as a backboard to see if my logic is flawed in the way that I'm thinking. What happens if you receive a problem or you're dealing with something that you haven't previously prepared yourself for?
I think, let me think about this. I'll make sure I give you the right answer here. I think that is how the storage unit fills up. Because I think the more that I'm faced with things I haven't really dealt with, I'm like, I'm not sure how to deal with that. It's going to go in the very back corner. I'll deal with that thing last. And maybe on the way, I'll get tools. Like maybe while I'm unpacking the boxes in front of it, I'm getting tools to be like, okay, now I can face this giant thing. And, unfortunately, in life, like, not everything's going to allow me to let it wait that long.
Yeah.
I think everything up until this point in my life, for the most part, everything has allowed me to at least wait long enough to get the tools to process it. There's not anything I've faced where I absolutely have zero tools, no tools in the toolbox to deal with.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's worked for me so far.
Yeah.
I think if I do get a point, like a problem that's like, you face it right now and you don't have any tools to deal with it,
Yeah.
I think that's when, I will reach out to my close friends or a therapist or the people, or coworkers or someone who may have the tools and be like, listen, I'm not usually like this, but I'm at a loss for words. Like I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know where to begin.
Yeah, or how to even take the first step.
Yeah.
So like, what do I do now? And I'm not that kind of person who usually does that. Like, I think that'd give me a lot of help, and just knowing that I have those people around me is enough for me to walk forward in life and not shy behind that I'm going to face problems like that. It's just knowing that I have a support system. It's like now I can take another step forward because I know someone will catch me on the way back. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a therapist. It doesn't necessarily mean it's family. It can just be, a friend, even someone who would just listen.
Yeah.
I think goes a really long way when you're faced with problems like that.
I think so too. That's why I think to wrap this up, that's why I think that these types of conversation between friends are really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it is this type of setting is one thing where we're staging it, and this is the purpose.
Light, camera, action.
Yeah, where this is the purpose of it, where we're sitting down and talk to this. But like trying to set this up in a home with your buddy, where you're like, hey, let's sit down and talk there, chap. Yeah. That's awkward and weird sometimes.
For sure.
But I think it's still something that needs to happen, and it's something that will serve all friendships really, really well if it becomes more commonplace. And maybe you can be sneaky as a friend.
Just learn how you do it.
Yeah, stage it a little bit, throw a softball question up in the air to see if they bite and get this conversation rolling. But I think that this will serve a lot of people a lot if this becomes more commonplace.
Yeah, no, and I think, I know we're wrapping up, but you just got to make sure it's the right friend too. You don't. I know it's hard to hear, but not every single one of your friends is going to be the right person to have that conversation with. At the end of the day, like, there's some people who just aren't there yet. Maybe they don't. They have their own demons to face, and they haven't faced it yet. But you also be careful about who you have that conversation with, because they could very easily take that information that you're giving them and use it against you at some point in the future. And I think it's just being careful about who the snakes are in your life and not giving them too much information. Yeah. And maybe you need to go through something like that so you realize if they're actually close friends or not. But it's something to be absolutely aware of and just be mindful of as you're moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, and that's too. That's why we advocate for this business that we're currently in. I mean, go talk to a professional, man. I mean, go talk. When in doubt, go talk to a professional.
That's their passion, is to do that stuff. So
they're great. They're trained in this thing. They're experts in their field. But yeah. The other thing to attest to the friendship thing, and I know that is a slippery slope where some people are like, I don't know who to trust with this information. Because mental health is a very intimate conversation. You're like, hey, this is who I am at my worst. Right. I mean, that's really the conversation you're having, and that to show somebody that is a very, very big deal. So you want to be. I understand that there is nerves about telling people these things and having that type of conversation. One of my favorite quotes is trust people to be who they are. Trust yourself to see it. So, trust people to be them. Yeah. If they're good people, then they're going to be good people, but trust yourself to be able to spot the difference between a good and a bad person. Yeah. You're going to see
learn. Either way, you'll learn.
Yep.